Hi there, this is Dani Beaumont, and I'm a Principal Product Manager on Adobe Muse. Thanks for joining me today. This is Muse Jam Session recording 196, and today we're going to focus on Adobe Muse and using Creative Cloud libraries to work more effectively with assets. Now, as we work, I'm going to attempt to keep an eye on the Facebook Live session as well. I keep trying to make things a little better as we go along here. And keep an eye on chat. I may or may not be successful with that. Let's see. Okay. I'm seeing old Dani sessions, but not the current ones. So I will stop from time to time and also check my phone because sometimes I get direct text messages. Okay, but let's go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned in this session, we're going to talk about how you can use Creative Cloud libraries to work with Adobe Muse. Now, Muse has a number of libraries. The tool's not that old. It's about 5 years old. But there are different levels of libraries within the tool, and it can be a little confusing. So it's a good idea to kind of start from scratch a bit with that. So if I begin here in Muse, and I start with probably the main library you're familiar with, which is the Widgets Library. And the Widgets Library allows you to, let me get my image here out of the way. The Widget Library allows you to come in and just take common web standards, common web practices. Let's see. A widget is a common web pattern that can be configured and styled very quickly and reused within the application. So if I were here on this Pigeon site and I wanted to start a new page, and on the page I wanted to add certain elements, widgets will take some of the tedious work of manually building out interactivity and automate that for you. So a widget might let you do a contact form, for example. I can press and drag it on the canvas and configure a form so that it would be submitted to the site owner. I can also come in and set up something like a menu. So if I came into the menu widgets here, drag those on the canvas, it's going to represent all of the pages on a current site. So that's the widget library. Now, as I work, if I come in and create a widget that I really like, let's say I get rid of this and actually delete this page, but I decide that there is a widget in use that I want to reuse. Let's say here in the contact page, I want to grab this form. I've gone in and configured it, styled the font, styled the colors the way I want. I can keep that in my own private library. And the way I would do that is instead of the widget library, I'll just drag these panels off to the side for a moment, I would go to something known as a library. And libraries are very personal. They're for your own local use. They can be shared by exporting the library and emailing it to someone, giving them, let's say, a Dropbox link, for example. But there's no idea of more than one person really working with that library file. So if I wanted to use this form element, because I've styled it out again, I can come in and create a new library for myself. I might call it Dani Scratch, because I'll probably delete this when we're done. And in that Dani Scratch folder, I can come to an element and right-click on it and say Add to Library and select that folder. So let's say I were working with a colleague. I could gather up a bunch of these elements and email or link that to the colleague. But there's no real, as I mentioned, way to collaborate or share with a local Muse library or MuLib, as they're known. So I'll come on in, call it Dani Scratch, and I can actually come in and tag that or give it a name that works for me. So I'll call this form for Pigeon. And I can work with the library in that way. When I'm done, if this was perfect and I did want to share it, I would click on it to select it and notice these very non-intuitive icons. I always have to look at the rollover that indicate whether or not I could export it to a MuLib, a Muse library file, and email it to someone else, or import a MuLib from someone else. Now, when you license widgets from the Adobe widget directory, quite often those third-party vendors will deliver widgets to you as library items. So you'll notice I have a Shopify widget here from cookie.com that I'm working with, and all I did was double click on that and I had access to it. So this is more history. This is how the world has been in the past. If you level that up a little bit, actually, give me a second. I'm going to pause and just make sure. All right, everything's looking good. Although I have a fear here. All right, something feels like it's wrong. Technology gone wild. No, we look good. Okay. I thought I was sharing that on my personal Facebook page, which is fun, but my friends and family would not be as excited as I'm sure everyone else is. Okay. So that's traditional, that's historical. Creative Cloud Libraries, I forget now. I think they shipped maybe 2 years ago. I personally kind of ignored them for a year. I didn't expect much from them, but I've grown to really appreciate the value for a Creative Cloud library. And in a nutshell, that value is that it is very easy to create a deposit, a repository of assets that you can share in a read-only mode. So you can create it. Let's say you're a designer and you work with a team of folks that use interactive elements. You can create an asset set that you share with that team in a read-only mode, or you can create a set of assets that you can collaborate with someone who has a read and write capability with that library. And it works incredibly well between applications. So let's kind of start there with the story for Creative Cloud Libraries. I'm going to go ahead and go to this Pigeon asset set that I have. And back in the day when we were working on the Pigeon design, the art director created a mood board, kind of a layout of Pigeon elements, and saved it out as a Photoshop file. So my job was to actually take that comp, in essence, and build it out in Adobe Muse. And what I did, if the gods want to cooperate with me here real quick. There you go. I've got a pigeonspec.psd. So this was kind of a spec page that the art director did to kind of get a sense of colors, fonts, different states of interactive elements in Photoshop. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up with Photoshop. And now that I have that open, we'll give it just 1 second here. Okay. Next thing I want to do is go ahead and actually look at my libraries folder. So it's just called libraries here in Photoshop, probably because they don't have 7 other libraries or 2 other, the way Muse does. But with this library, I'm going to jump over to just something else here. So this is another library that I have that I've created in the past. Here within this project, what I have the ability to do is actually come in and extract all of the relevant content from my current Photoshop file into a Creative Cloud library. So to do that, I haven't done it in a while, but I believe what I would do is come on in here. Let's just see. Okay, notice that in Photoshop, and there is some differences between applications around how Creative Cloud libraries are implemented. In Photoshop, there's an icon to add an individual element. So I could come in and select one object within Photoshop and then add it to a library. I can also just say, go ahead and extract everything interesting that you see in this Photoshop comp. And that's the new library from document icon here. If I click it, I can come in and define which attributes I want to bring over. And this is a little bit of the devil in the details. The range of file formats that are supported with Creative Cloud libraries are very unique to the application that's creating that content. So in that, there are some things that come from Photoshop into Muse that are going to be relevant. Some things that could come over will not be relevant because the handshake is not there. So for example, character styles. If I did want to get a sense of the fonts that are being used in this comp, capturing the character styles would help me, but when I jump over into Muse, I already know that paragraph or character styles in Adobe Muse don't really align with Photoshop, so it's not something that would actually carry over. Colors could, layer styles are also something that is more of a Photoshop thing that wouldn't really manifest over into Muse, but I'll go ahead and I'll leave all of them checked just to kind of show you how that would work. And I'll click on the Create New Library button. And the name of this document is pigeonspecs.psd. You'll notice that I've done this before, so I have a Pigeon Specs 2, but it would basically create a corresponding library for me. And there are some interesting attributes that carry over here. We've got layer styles, again, which are useful in Photoshop, not so much Muse. I've got some typographic styles that are here. But then I'm getting some other elements, and they're loading right now because this is a cloud level feature. What's happening is everything, I'm actually working from home today, so everything that's on my local machine is being uploaded into the Creative Cloud because I want to be able to share it amongst my applications and share with others. So as we give it a little bit of style, time here, I'm seeing how each of these graphic elements are coming into the library. Let's go ahead and kind of give this a bit of a better name so we know that we're working with it. I'm going to rename Pigeon Specs 2 to just something that I can deal with here. What did I do? Let's just try Muse Jam, CC Lib, and I'll go ahead and apply that new name. Okay, so kind of nothing up my sleeve here. I'm going to switch right over to Adobe Muse. And the amazing thing, if the world wants to cooperate, is if I want to go now not to the library panel, let's drag this one off so it's next to Widget Library, off on the side. This time I'm going to go to the Creative Cloud Library. If I come into the drop-down, I'm already seeing Muse Jam _CC Lib. So that's the library I just created in Photoshop. Now notice that the character styles are here, but they're grayed out because it's not something I could drag over into Muse. I might want to use it between Photoshop and Illustrator, for example, but it's not as relevant here. I can see all of the colors that were used in that original document. There's some repeats. I'm not really sure why that's true. Maybe it was stroke versus fill, but I can always come in and delete any colors I don't want to carry over. But it's a nice way to get those color values right into the application. And then I've got some nice other elements. Notice that although I pulled these from Photoshop, I see the AI Illustrator ID, so the vector content that was placed as a smart object in Photoshop will blow into this Creative Cloud library as an Illustrator source. That's really nice. That means that if I want to round trip or edit the content, it remembers its origins and will allow me to go in and make changes to that source content directly from the library. So I see there's Illustrator content pretty much down the line here. There's a PNG file which was probably placed in Photoshop as a PNG, or even a different other source. As it's exported into the library, you can control how that export format is handled. In this instance, it was a PNG. So I've got some good elements that are here. Now that I'm here in Muse, let's say I do want to jump over and add a page to my site and start to work with these elements. I can roll up and hide the different categories. I've got colors, graphics, character styles, as we've seen, layer styles. Another one that's kind of interesting is if I had animations. If there were SVG animations, I'll even show you this. Let me just see if I can play with this. So Dani demo animations. I've got a OAM here, so something that was generated in either Edge Animate or Adobe Animate, which is formerly known as Flash Professional. Both allow you to create animated content. I can swing back here into that Muse Jam CC library and actually add it into my library here. If I hit that plus sign, and I'll go ahead and hit add. Actually, it came over just as artwork. That's interesting. Usually I could get it as an edge animation, but that may be something that was created in Edge Animate. All right, so I'm kind of losing it there. Notice that it thinks that it's a Muse file and it's no longer an animation file. Another backdoor I can use would be to go to those elements. So if I go back to Dani Demo Animations and I grab one of these, I believe if I right click, I can go ahead and move it to or copy it to this new library I've created. So when you have, this is kind of an important nuance, a trap that I sort of fell into for a minute there. When you take a library item and you drag it onto the canvas of the application you're in, it may inherit or start to assume that that file format, that native format, would be, for example, Muse. So when I drag those items out onto the design canvas and then went to drag them back, they lost their source identity. A way you can retain that source identity as you're moving content would be to move within the libraries. So if I go ahead and select that one animation and say that I want to move it into the CC library folder, if I jump back over to that CC library folder and the gods want to behave, yay, I now have an animation. So I did want to just show you that category. So this was created in Edge Animate, and it has its own bucket for animations, and all the content is here. Now, there are limitations at the moment with CC libraries, some things that I think the team hasn't had a chance to implement, but I do have confidence that it's well-funded and staffed at Adobe and will continue to grow. So one of the limitations in my mind is you can't come in and nest or create any kind of a hierarchy beyond the root here. So I have a graphics folder. I couldn't come in and say, do me a favor and show me only the icons that might be in this directory, or show me only the, the PNG files. I can't search or do a find for certain file types or really organize things into subfolders. Let me jump over to the library that I created for the Pigeon site. If I can find it here, building your first site. All right, so I organized this, and some of what I did in my own mind is, knowing that I can't rely on subfolders, I named elements pretty well. And there's some nice search features for Creative Cloud libraries that you may or may not notice. So I can come in and notice here it says search current library. If I go to the drop down, I have the ability to search across all libraries, only the current library, and also Adobe Stock. We'll talk about Adobe Stock in just a second. But if I go ahead and say, sure, I want to search the current library, if I just type in ICO, notice that I can get to all of the icons that I have in this particular library. If I go in and try BKG, I obviously didn't name it that way, but how about button, BTN? So you can, by the way, you kind of old-fashioned naming, the way that you name the files, find a way to quickly come in and sort for certain content that you have. I tend to name things icons or background or image, IMG, just so that I can access a subset of the content really quickly and easily. Okay, so we're going to continue to play with this a little bit, but let's say I have the content that I want in place, and let's go ahead and cancel that search, and I'm ready to share it with someone else. This is kind of the powerful, playful part of it. So this is actually something I don't want to screw up. If you go to the Creative Cloud Learn area, there's building your first responsive site with Muse, and I talk all about how to build out this Pigeon website. And one of the things I wanted to do is make sure that that library is available for people that are attending the course. But the hard part about it is, if a month from now I realize I forgot to put an asset, or I mistakenly designed an asset inappropriately and want to change it, quite often if you kind of create an element, a shared asset set, and you push it out to the world, you can't pull it back. You can't update it. With the Creative Cloud libraries, there are 3 different ways really that you can share library content. One is, let's say I want to share this with the community. I can share it in sort of a snapshot read-only mode, and I'll just create a share link for that. Another one is if I kind of don't mind sharing it, and I want you to be able to follow any changes I make over time, but I don't want someone to come in and delete or mess up what I've done. Don't want them to have write capabilities, but I want them to be able to grab what I'm sharing and continue to grab the latest instance of that. That would be by way of something known as a follow feature that I'll show you. And then the third one is kind of a very different collaboration world. And that's one where I'm working with another designer. I implicitly trust them, or at least I've saved another backup. You can copy, duplicate libraries easily. Maybe I'm a sharing kind of girl, but I'm also suspicious. So you can create that backup, and then you can share the library with another collaborator. Let's look at kind of those sharing choices now. So here I am on the Building Your First Library, first site with Muse. And you'll notice there's kind of the little menu on the right, the hamburger menu as it's known in the web. If I click on it, I have some choices here. I can share a link, or I can collaborate. If I go on in and select Collaborate, I do need web access, pretty obviously here. It's going to bring up the Creative Cloud web instance, and it's going to point to the library that I have, I think. Looks like it's loading funny, if not loading. The beauty of the web. Let's do a quick refresh. Share your assets with a send link. Let's see. I'm the wrong Dani. Hold on. I have more than one Creative Cloud login because I was testing being a new trial user. So now that I'm myself, I can share that. So that's kind of an important permission moment there. In Adobe Muse, I'm logged in as Dani at Adobe. That's my Adobe ID. When I want to share out that library, the Creative Cloud at least knew that I wasn't really still the same person when I was logged in up in the cloud, and it stopped me. At least that's my hypothesis. If I come now to that Building Your First library and select Collaborate, click my heels together. Maybe. Haha. Yes, there we go. So this is a collaboration opportunity. I've obviously shared this with Dean DeBacchus, who works in the Creative Cloud Learn group, and he was responsible for taking the library and sharing up as part of the article. So notice that he is not only has share access, so he can view it and work with it, but he can edit it. So I can invite Dean by name and say, go ahead and view it, Dean, but don't make any changes. I can also allow him to view and edit, and he has both of those rights right now. If I wanted to add another person to this library, I can just send an email. They'll receive the email, and they can join that share folder. And I would hit the invite button there. I'm also free to come in and remove people. If I got tired of Dean, I could just remove him from this library. I'm going to go ahead and close that out, and let's look at the other way that you would share. Let's get out of here, come back over into Muse. Let's say I am now sharing in a way that I want to let people view and follow, but I don't know who you are. I can't, let's say it's a jam session. I can't come up with all the names of the people I want to follow it. With that same library selected in the dropdown, I'm going to come in and select that I want to share a link. So this will create, in essence, it's like a Dropbox link. It's a generic link that anyone can access and get a hold of and would be able to work with it. So notice that the toggle here switches to public. That's indicating that there's going to be a link that anyone can view. I can come in and copy that link and just paste it somewhere, and you would be able to join it. So if you want to, just for the heck of it, if you guys want to have a play date here, it's kind of a crummy link. I'm going to share it in the Zoom interface, which doesn't help people on Facebook Live, but what the heck. So I'll just paste it in here. And now folks could go on in. Now I need to control a little bit about what I've just allowed people to get to there. Notice that I can allow them to follow and allow them to save. So when I say follow, I'll go ahead and save that out. This is fine. Follow says that, as we know, if a week from now I realize I made a mistake, I can come back to that library directly in Muse. I don't need to come to this web interface in any way. I can make changes, and that will automatically update the library that anyone that is following that library has in their own machine. There's another really nice, clever checkbox here, which says that you as a consumer of this library can go in and duplicate it. So once you have the ability to follow and access it, you can duplicate it, you can share it with other people, you can make changes at that point. So that one's kind of fun as well. And if you're, again, bored because I'm talking too much, you can go off and play with this. Go ahead and add it into your Creative Cloud library, and then go ahead and see if you can duplicate it. So in theory, what you should be able to do is here, see it. You'll notice there's this little people icon. That indicates to me that I'm sharing this with someone other than myself. I can see that here. With it selected, you'll be able to come on in and probably duplicate or copy that library. Okay, so that's some of the aspects about the library that I really like. For the life of me, I'm kind of not able to see if there's any questions in chat. So I'm going to try to come up with that really quick here. Let's just switch over. So if you have questions as we're going along, you're welcome to put those questions into the comments. I can't guarantee I'll be able to follow them all. Okay, good. At least we got Jake a fan. That's great. Good to see you. Looks like folks are all right. It's not easy being by yourself when you're doing these pitches. But let's go ahead and dig in a little bit deeper. So here I am. I've got my library. I'm playing. I can come in and play with colors. Colors could be a little bit better in Muse. There are some tricks for working with a swatch set in Muse. If you're really obsessive about colors, which I tend to be, you can export a swatch set and then import that swatch set, which will control the way the colors appear. I can show you that for a minute. So if I'm here in my swatches panel, see if I can do this on the fly, and I right click on the swatches panel, notice that you can import a swatch library. I think I've got one here, perhaps. Yeah. So yeah, we're kind of going off into a tangent here, but if you get a set of swatches that you've saved out in Muse that you like an awful lot, you've named them, you've saved them, the colors are exactly the way you want them, you can save them or export them out as something known as an ASE, an Adobe, I don't know, I forget what the acronym is for or stands for, but it's the same thing that Cooler or Adobe Color uses, Illustrator, Photoshop. This is a color file exchange that you can work with. If I come in and open that up, you may notice that I've got some new colors that are here. Notice that the swatches came over and they came over in a named way. I can go in and delete all unused, which will make the set I just added go away. I could take the swatch set I have here and I could export it to create the ASC file and then go ahead and import it. The nice part about that is it remembers the sequence that you added colors. Like I do get obsessed here. I really like all my oranges to be together. And the Muse team has not had a chance to reorganize those color swatch sets. With Creative Cloud libraries, you can come in and let's see what happens if I do this. Yeah. So as I'm working, if you want to rely on this color set and then organize it or clean it up after the fact, you can come in and drag these colors and drop it onto individual items. Maybe. Be kind. Demo gods, be kind. Let's give it a little bit more. Let's see. I'm pretty sure I just drag over here, but it's being mad at me now. I did get Muse mad at me. Let's see. Creative Cloud Library. Let's jump on in here. I think the interesting, challenging part, perhaps, with Creative Cloud Libraries is that they're live. It really is a live connection to the cloud. So I've seen sometimes, all right, we're back again. I think I got it a little mad at me for a moment there. Should be able to press and drag over now. Come on, darling. Maybe it's me. All right, I might be crashing and burning on colors there. I swear we all just saw this a second ago. All right, let's leave colors alone for the moment. The library's being a little funny with me at the moment. So we're going to come back to colors. We still have time. Let's talk about some of the other items. So I know that I personally, I've used Illustrator since Illustrator 88, but I lost track of some of the complexity in Illustrator 88. So things like artboards and multiple artboards and selection states can overwhelm me at times. One of the things I really enjoy is if you are in Illustrator and you add some SVG content, you can round trip really easily with that content as you're working. So let's say, let's go ahead and darken up the canvas here a little bit so I can show off some of this. Very pretty shade of gray. I've got some Illustrator content here. I can see that by the AI logo. If I press and drag this on the canvas, you know what, guys? I got Creative Cloud Libraries mad at me. So I'm going to step out for a moment and come back in. All right. Let's see if the world is a little kinder. I'm going to push my luck. Okay, see how that works. It wasn't me this time. I'm just going to draw a container. If I want to work with any of these colors, I can select the object and then select the color. So you can easily extract what you have there, create a swatch set, drag it back into your own set. I tend to do that. I'll take a row of colors and save it out as a library item. It's an easy way to use the color picker or add it into the swatches set. We were talking a little bit about SVG content. So this is white stuff. So I'm going to drag this over so we can see what we're doing. But let's say I brought over some Illustrator content. This pigeon logo, for example. Okay, so I've got a pigeon logo that's here. It's got, let's see, just want to double check. That is a Muse item, so I don't want to use it as much. I want to grab an Illustrator element. So when I did the whole pigeon design, I did not realize that text would not be scalable in responsive design. You can scale the container, but the text is only scalable if you save it out as artwork as an SVG. So this is examples of kind of that SVG content. So it's some text that I created in Illustrator and I flattened out. let's actually get away from that. I do want to go with something a little more graphical. So I've got, let's say, this bird icon that was developed in Illustrator. Okay. So it's here. It is SVG, which means I can scale it. It'll look jaggy for a moment, but when I release, it's going to render, and it'll render very cleanly because it's resolution independent. Let's say I've realized I've got this asset and I want a round trip. I want to make a change in Illustrator. I can just come to the object here and just select Edit. It notices, Creative Cloud Library notices the Illustrator logo there on the side and allows me to just go in and round trip, very much like smart objects. If you kind of grew up in the old creative suite world where Illustrator and Photoshop and InDesign were very interchangeable, I can now come to this object and make some changes. Let's say I decide that this really should have a fill color, something really truly beautiful. Exactly what I meant. All I need to do when I'm done is basically go in and save it. And if I swing back here into Muse very, very quickly, notice that that bird has changed out. Now, it didn't change on the design canvas. If I use it, I'll usually be alerted that there is a change, and I can go ahead and update that change. If I come drag it over again, it'll have that updated instance. So similar to when you place assets in general within Muse, when you open up the project, it'll say, some of the assets have updated. Do you want me to go ahead and make that change? So if I've made an external change to this asset and open up the project later, I can always go back and catch those changes. What else is interesting here? I've got a couple reference documents that I think can be interesting. I'm going to go ahead and grab a shortcut that I created. So there's a tiny URL here. Let me go ahead and copy it. I could try to be daring with all this technology and go to Facebook Live and put it in the comments. All right. So that is a shortcut. If you follow that, I can also put it in here. Whoever decided that we have to always be on Facebook Live and Zoom and present at the same time is overestimating my technical ability. Okay, let's go to a browser and I'll show you what that is about. So there's some folks at Adobe that are working on documenting how Creative Cloud libraries work. This is, I thought, was a really nice summary of all the things that you can do within the file, within the Creative Cloud library as you're working with it. We're a little shy on time, which means we've got about 10-15 minutes. If there are general questions that you want to throw up, you can either put that in the Zoom chat and I will see them, or I will swing over to Facebook Live and see if there's comments that are there. The only other thing we didn't really talk about that is pretty powerful is the ability to search Adobe Stock as well. Let's say you're working and you, with your Creative Cloud license, you have access to Adobe Stock. You may just want to use it for position only, FPO, so watermarked images, or you may actually buy images through Adobe Stock. But kind of having them built in here can be pretty powerful. So let's say I want to come up and get a bird, right? I've got a few birds that are in my current library. That's what we're looking at, right? Because we set it to search only my current library. But instead say, go ahead and go out to Adobe Stock and search for birds. I'm sure we'll come up with a few. Oh, look. I can then come in with any one of these birds and notice there are two icons. I can buy the actual stock photo if I'm ready to license it, or I can simply download it as a preview with a watermark. So I'll go ahead and download it. It's now being added to this library. So there's various flying birds in silhouette vector created in Adobe Illustrator. So again, that's kind of cool. Notice that Illustrator's here. I don't think I bought that. Let's see if I drag it over here and place it, what we get. So that's kind of interesting if you ask me. That's a funny twist of technology. Because I didn't buy it, I got basically for position only, really. So I've got the birds that are here. These are supposedly SVG content, but I'm just getting a preview that I can use in my project. If I decide later on that I want to go ahead and buy it, I can come back to these lovely birds. And if I right click, notice that I can go in and actually license it. So what the heck, let's go license it. I think I've got a few stock image entitlements. Oh, I still have 488 licenses left, but it's used one. I now have a full license for these birds. And I think because they are Illustrator, if I right click on them now and say edit, it'll take me into Adobe Illustrator where I can actually work with the vector content. So because I've licensed the source, I have the ability to go ahead and access it. So pretty powerful there. If you find Adobe Stock to be to your liking, the content that's there, and want to pay for the entitlements, or perhaps through your organization you have some stock entitlements. That does remind me that the nuance with Creative Cloud libraries, I think it's the nuance with everything cloudy, is it depends on the license that you have with Adobe. If you work for an enterprise organization, you may or may not have access to a variety of kind of cloud-like features. One is the ability to create a trial in Adobe Muse. So as you're working within Muse, when you go to publish, you can create what's known as a business catalyst site, and that's a temporary site. That requires that your environment, your enterprise, allow you to publish outside your firewall onto the web. Some of those same rules apply for stock photo access or even Creative Cloud Library. So if 3 of you just sat through this and realized you have an enterprise account, I'm sorry I didn't tell you up front, but it does sort of rely on that a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go look at Facebook and see if anything amazing is going on that we should mention or we can cover. You are also welcome to throw out any ideas you have for future jam sessions. I do this every other week. I think this is recording 196. It may not be my very best, but it's definitely one of them. I am going to start to encourage people to come join our private beta in about a week or two. We have some amazing new Muse content coming up, some new features that we want lots of feedback on. So keep your ear to the ground. I'll definitely mention it in the next jam session in 2 weeks. Looks like everybody is pretty good. I think Pablo left and is going to go be a hand coder instead, which is perfectly fine. But I think we might be light on questions, which means we may have covered this pretty well. Not much in the chat. So I'll go ahead and close out at this point. What I will suggest is that if you want to learn more about Creative Cloud libraries, there's definitely some CC Learn content. I'll show you, just so you know, if you go to muse.adobe.com and you click on the tutorials page, yeah, I'm going to do that twice. And you look on down, I did a recording that kind of takes you through how to work with Creative Cloud libraries that's here. We also talk about Adobe Stock. It's a good place to hang out. There's some starter files if you're brand new to Muse. 2 of them are responsive, but it's a file you can download. If you look at the preview help link, there's little quick videos that teach you how to update the content in these starters. You're welcome to use them in real sites if you'd like, but there's definitely mention to the Creative Cloud library and stock photography in here and some follow-on videos. Well, thank you everyone for your time. Hope to see you in 2 weeks, this time slot, and topic to be determined. Send your ideas. I'd be happy to entertain them. Okay, catch you again soon. Thank you.